We're going to start the new year off by talking about quarterly reporting tips and tricks. It's that time of year where we're all doing our end of year reports and our quarterly reports for last quarter. So before we get started, we're going to do a quick introduction of our team in case you're new to our series here. So I'm Marie Stacks, president at Boost Midwest.
I'm Justin Murdoch, project analyst at Boost Midwest.
I am Rebecca Preston, and I'm a project coordinator here at Boost Midwest, excuse me.
And I'm Rachel Villafane. I am also a project coordinator at Boost Midwest.
So as you can tell, we've got quite a few members from our team here, and they all have fantastic advice and tips and tricks to share. So to get us started, the question that most people have is, how do you approach quarterly reporting for grants? So I'm going to leave it to you guys to kind of get us started on answering that.
Well, this is obviously really heavily on my mind right now, but it really, of course, it depends on the client's needs, right? So depending on how things run, we may already have a collection of weekly reports or maybe monthly reports that we can synthesize into our quarterly report. And for example, with our Titan project with ACDS and ADHE, we have weekly meeting logs that are very helpful in compiling a quarter end report. And then it also depends on the needs of the grantors or the funders. So obviously with the Titan grant, which is a federal grant, we have particular reports that we're required to provide to the Department of Labor. So we just like to make sure we have our systems in place to have those ready as soon as we need them, and always turn them in early instead of on time.
I love that kind of proactive aspect. Becca, you were going to add to it.
Oh, I was going to say that with that always early, I think that we are collectively a group of people with deadlines before the deadline. And through that process, we have our personal deadlines. Like, I know me and Justin are like, we'll have it to you by X day in order to get it to Marie on Y day in order to get it sent off on Z day. And I think that that's how we get everything done so efficiently and so early, is because we do set these deadlines, and they're realistic deadlines. Most importantly, we're not, putting everything on our plate and waiting until last minute. We're planning it out and we're getting it off to who it needs to get off in time.
That's so true too. And I think our clients really appreciate that. I know, a lot of times they're doing the budget side of things. So we've got to collaborate all together on those pieces and making sure that we set that and communicate those deadlines. I think the project communication is also a big piece of that. So what other deliverables that do we work on in a quarter to quarter basis? I mean, besides, the typical QPRs and QNRs.
So once I prepare the QPR and the QNR, so those are the Department of Labor. It's a quarterly performance report and a quarterly narrative report, both of which we're required to report on a quarterly basis. Big surprise there. But in addition to those, I also create a demographic report with more easily digestible data and information, and I compare those to local information and for the state of Arkansas. And I also create a summary of the quarterly narrative report, which is, it's a long document with, I think, 11 different sections. It's very detailed, and not everyone needs to know all of that. So I boil it down into a really short one-pager, and that really helps us keep all of our stakeholders on board. So there's lots of curious people, and most people are really happy with one page of information instead of 11.
Yeah, a lot less to read, right? So I think too, you make a good point about keeping all the stakeholders engaged at the right level. And so that's, I think, a big piece of that too. Okay, so it's the start of the new year. We've got New Year's resolutions, you've got new goals, we've got, looking at the year that we've just gone through, which we all know 2020 was a hot mess. But there's a lot of good that happened last year. And I think as well, there's a lot of opportunities that are, on the horizon. So one of the things that we've been working on recently is an annual report. And I think that's been a lot of fun. Do you guys see that annual report in its current state, as well as maybe some board reports or things like that? How did those fit into the reporting strategy?
Kick us off again. I like we were just talking about, Marie, is it's important to keep stakeholders engaged on the right level. So it's of course, if you provide too much information, you'll lose interest and or maybe provoke some misunderstandings. So you need to have the right amount of information for the right people. So it depends on your audience. For example, the annual report that we're helping to prepare for ACDS right now is for a general audience, and it's really trying to help people stay informed about the work that ACDS is doing. And I think that they tie into the report landscape, and that they're crucial pieces of keeping everyone involved, and they also allow you to bring a little bit more creativity to the table. There's the Department of Labor reports require some very specific guidelines, whereas the annual report, you can really let your creative juices flow.
I think with that too, with the annual report, you're showing where you were at a year ago. And I think that's important to take into consideration, especially when you're, talking to your stakeholders and you're presenting this information. What growth have we had in the past year? What do we need to improve? What's working? What's not working? And I think when you look at it big picture and then you break it down quarterly, we could say, well, a year ago, January 2020 was like January 2019. Things were going on, things are great. But then when you're comparing second and third quarter compared to the previous year, or even projections for this year and next year, it's going to be vastly different. So I think that those measurables as well within the reporting is something to pay attention to, especially in today's current events.
And oh yeah, sorry, go ahead, Rachel.
You're good. I was just going to add, kind of echoing or piggybacking off of Rebecca, I think that being able to I think an annual report gives you the opportunity to zoom out in a way that you may not be able to do day to day. So it also forces, the team to really think about the big picture. And it's just, I think it's a really, really cool tool to be able to do that.
That is it's a strategy tool in some ways. So to me, I also think it's a little bit of a way to brag on yourself, to say, as an organization, we're rock stars. We can get this done. We can hit our mission and grow it every year. And I think when you have that annual report, your team is proud of it too. So I personally like that we get to put those together for our clients, just because it's fun to see them shine. Okay, up next on our questions list is, how do you deal with shifting reporting requirements? And I think Justin and I have seen this firsthand with the DOL and with a lot of different agencies. I think when they start a project and then things get going, they realize that, oh, we need a few more data points. How do you guys feel like it's best to deal with those situations?
I think for me, the answer is just communication. It's making sure that you're up to date with what your funders are telling you, making sure that all of the necessary partners for reporting are in the loop about what information they have to provide, and really, it's important to stay in that close contact, especially with the grant providers, because they've made a commitment to helping you. They want to see you succeed. They're not shifting the requirements to trick you. It's just to help their programs and to help their investments. So everyone wants to make it work. So talk to them.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I was just going to say communication, and then not taking on too much that's not going in the direction of what you need it to. A lot of the time, some grantors have a project direction just as much as you do within being the grant management. And I think you have to combine the two, but you need to go in a similar direction. You can't, you want to make the V, you don't want to make the X, you don't want to miss the point. So definitely communication.
So true. I think ultimately successful project management, you start with the end in mind, but you talk about it the whole way through. and you make sure that that end is still the same target. And so, Becky, you made a great point about a lot of times it has to do with the funders wanting to align goals that they have. And I think that's definitely the case. I think as well, you see where they started a program, and when they initially set up yours, you're subsequent to that. And so that data set of elements made sense. And now they're saying, well, to compare these two programs together, we need a few more pieces. And so they're not asking just you. I never feel like you're being singled out. And a lot of times I know that, with the relationships that we have a lot with our, not only our clients, but also with federal project officers, those are extremely valuable conversations to constantly be having. And so I think that's how, in my eyes, we're able to kind of stay on top of it, because you have that conversation with your FPO and you come back and they say, hey, you're doing great. Don't worry, but we need a couple more pieces. So it keeps you engaged in what you're doing and excited about it, but not fully discouraged. But also helps to have a really good project management team to help you with it. Just saying.
I just quickly going to add that I think that it's really important that the processes that are already in place are really strong and able to adapt quickly, because if you're not already collecting that, that new information, you have to figure out a really quick way to, okay, what's the fastest way to get this new data point.
That is such a good point. Yeah, I think you're spot on with that, Rachel. All right, so I'm going to hop down to what is probably my favorite question, because on that point, Rachel, of having strong practice and strong processes, one of our big pieces is making sustainable solutions for our clients. So how do we ensure, or how do you guys individually, when you're working on a project, ensure that there's this sustainability in reporting practices?
I'm going to say, Justin, you've started us off on every question. You got to keep it going. Can't stop now.
I was going to let someone else have a turn. Sure. I think sustainability really comes from consistency in practice. And so it's making sure that you're doing the same things in the same ways, and that everyone knows what that practice is, that it's clear and open. And obviously having a project management team helps with that. For example, in leading weekly stand-up meetings with a regular agenda that's updated on a regular basis, and collaborating on deliverables, this helps you really lead with your strengths instead of focusing on the tiny tasks,
I think too, like running the running schedule, like in my mind, we meet every single Thursday at 9:30, unless there's something that comes up with the majority of us where it's a holiday. Like I know in my head that on this day, Fridays, these deliverables are, they needed to go to Marie to be sent off, or they need to go to Justin or Rachel to be sent off. And I think that consistency, like you said, that's a big thing with the PMP too, isn't it, Marie, where the consistency for deliverables?
It absolutely is. And I think, so you've got consistency with communication, consistency in practice, and then there's also just simply the accountability, right? So that consistency creates accountability. And as long as you have that, I think that ultimately leads to success long-term, because no one wants to, like Becca pointed out, we set deadlines about two, stances in front of it, because we don't want to miss a deadline, but we also want to exceed expectations. And I think that is the root of everything, is making sure expectations are met and that everybody knows what they are. You can't actually meet someone's expectations if you've never talked about it. So, okay. Anything else you guys want to add to our topic today? Final words of wisdom. All right. Rachel.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that when people hear the word annual report or quarterly report, they kind of freak out. And I think that we need to kind of shift our mindset around that and just kind of be excited about this is a time to really think about what did we do this quarter, or what did we do this year?
So true. I love how you put that too. It's your time to shine. It's not a time to be worried. Good deal. Well, thank you for joining us today, you guys. And And thank you to everybody that's watched this. If we can be of any help at Boost Midwest, please feel free to reach out to any of us. And you can also grab a spot on our calendar by going to our website and just selecting schedule a consultation. So we look forward to talking to you. Thanks so much.